was a bit of a hiccup with the announcement of the Assembly's programme for government during the week, resulting in it having to be delayed for a day. Well, come on now. That's understandable, considering they've only had 10 years to come up with one. Hey! Yes, it's been a decade since the Northern Ireland Assembly has been able to lay out their intentions going forward. Now, for most of that time, governing was left in the hands of unelected civil servants. That probably wasn't a bad thing. They'd probably done a better job. If this week has proved one thing, it is that for once, we aren't the most dysfunctional democracy in the world. With that title now firmly in the hands of the good old US of A. Up. The Donald's been at his work again. Yeah, him and his bitch, Vice President Vance, staged a disgraceful ambush of visiting Ukrainian President Zelensky in the Oval Office. Now, here's a small clip of what will go down as one of the most ignominious days in the history of the US of A.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems? Bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Even the shenanigans of President Clinton and Miss Lewinsky in the Oval Office pale into insignificance compared to the disgraceful bullying of Trump and Vance of the Ukrainian leader. They even mocked Zelensky's decision not to wear a suit. And this started right from the moment Zelensky arrived. Trump met him at the door of the White House and said, "Oh, look, he's all dressed up," which makes me convinced, as I said at the time, this was a well rehearsed and planned ambush. But I do wonder what the likes of Trump would have said if he'd met Churchill. Because this is what Churchill wore when he visited the White House during the Second World War. For there are clear comparisons between Churchill and Zelensky. Both faced dictators using violence to grab land. Indeed, US public opinion wasn't dissimilar then to now, with many Americans arguing against the country becoming involved in the Second World War as they've used it as a European conflict and were still stung after the First World War. The one massive difference, of course, was the presidents in power then and now. During the Second World War, Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had just led his country out of the Great Depression, went on to bravely face down fascism in both Europe and Japan. Today, we have a fat, bronzed-faced, spoilt brat who appears to be in awe of Europe's newest dictator, Vladimir Putin. Because make no mistake, the country which previously was the sword carrier of freedom and democracy belittled a wartime ally and spouted pro-Russian propaganda, losing that standing. Now, if we could have seen Putin in the Kremlin watching what was going on, this is probably what we would have seen.
You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you.
Trump even accused Zelensky of being the dictator because he hadn't held elections since the start of the war with Russia. This just proves that man's complete lack of a basic knowledge of history, as Winston Churchill did exactly the same, cancelling an election in 1940 due to the ongoing war with Germany. Indeed, I'd argue it's Trump himself who is showing dictatorial inclinations, as he intimates now that 2 terms, the maximum allowed under the US Constitution, may not be enough for the Donald.
No, I won't be happy the next time. Should I run again? You tell me. There's your controversy right there.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had a much easier meeting with Trump earlier in the week, though this is probably down to the fact that he took on board the input of psychiatrists. I'm convinced that he had talked to psychiatrists before he travelled across the Atlantic, and they would have probably identified Trump for what he is, a classic narcissist, and advised the Prime Minister that the best approach would be to offer ebullient praise of the genius that was the President and bring gifts, always bring gifts. In the case of Starmer, the gift took the shape of pimping out Prince King Charles, offering Trump a state visit to Balmoral. Trump said that the king was a beautiful man. I don't think anyone else has ever said that. It'll be interesting to see what the king thinks. I'd love to be a fly on that wall. Now, even though Trump warmly accepted Starmer's invitation, still he forced Starmer, as he will force all European leaders, to bow to his demand that they increase spending on defence by 2.5% of their GDP. And where will this money come from? Social care, education, infrastructure, and of course the NHS. Now, I've never been a conspiracy theorist, but the phrase which jumps to mind is military-industrial complex. This term was coined by Dwight D. Eisenhower in his farewell address as president in 1961. Speaking about the then growing arms race with the USSR, Eisenhower was worried that the increase in defense spending was having a destabilizing effect on the very fabric of US government and society. He said, and I quote, "Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved, so is the very structure of our society. In the Council of Government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex, the potential for disaster of misplaced power and will persists." Now, President Eisenhower was uniquely placed and qualified to make those judgments, having been Commander-in-Chief of the US military during World War II. The problem today is not only do we have a US president ignorant of not only US history, but also a US electorate ignorant of world history. As for the military-industrial complex, well, the Pentagon has always sat right at the gates of power. But now, industry in the shape of the Elon Musk is at the heart of decision-making. He's on the board, even though no one cast a vote for Elon Musk. And as Musk bleeds, and he will bleed the US public purse of billions to fund his hobby of spaceships and ludicrous dreams of interplanetary travel to Mars, millions of Americans will go hungry and homeless while the top 1%, such as Musk, grow ever richer. Considering all this, of course, the decision of Sinn Féin Alliance and the SDLP to boycott this year's St. Patrick's Day celebrations in the White House now look very wise. We can but wonder how embarrassed DUP leader Emma Little Pengilly must be, as she's the only local politician who's agreed to bow a knee to the Donald and go kiss his shamrock on the 17th of March.